The movie happens in the ancient periods during the Vikings' time. In the opening scene, we see a spaceship falling off onto Earth. It falls down like a meteor shower and falls straight into a lake. Then two humanoid-like figures with advanced suits come out of the spaceship. One of them takes off his mask and lies down. His name is Kanan. Next morning when he wakes up, he sees his crewmate being dead and claw marks are buried deep into his chest. He looks into the lake and sees an advanced computer device that survived the fall. He goes to get it. After getting the device, he finds his location. Then with the help of it, he downloads the information of Earth. It inserts data about all the customs of Earth and the languages they speak. Then he takes out his weapon and did a practice shot. Later he gives a proper burial to his crewmate and sets off his travel. Kanan goes through a forest and reaches a village where he sees a whale corpse. He sees the villages all destroyed and everything there has become a mess. He starts to run after hearing someone approaching on a horse. He goes into the forest and someone comes and strikes him down. Kanan falls unconscious and his gun falls into a river. Later Kanan was brought back to the Viking village by a man named Wulfric. In the main hall, King Hrothgar and his daughter Freyja are having a sore debate. Hrothgar insists Freyja to marry Wulfric and Freyja is saying that Wulfric is a hypocrite for the throne and the battle concludes after Freyja got hit on the shoulder. Later Wulfric comes to Hrothgar and informs him that Gunnar's village is destroyed and they don't know who did it and says Gunnar is not their cause. He is on trading with another kingdom. Hrothgar is a little bit scared on hearing this. He says Gunnar will think it's us. Wulfric tells that they found a man in the woods and don't know which clan he belongs to. Later, Wulfric takes Kanan into the barns and starts to investigate him. He tells his name is Kanan, which Wulfric thinks is funny, and he says he is from an island from north. When Wulfric asks why he was there, Kanan tells him he was hunting the dragon, but Wulfric doesn't believe him. Kanan tries to fight them but gets beaten up in the end. After that, Wulfric gets to Freyja and tells her to treat Kanan, which Freyja refuses, but Wulfric goes saying if he dies it's on your head. Later, Freyja gets to Kanan and she treats him. After treating, Freyja asks him if he really attacked Gunnar's village, to which Kanan says he didn't. When she looks behind, Kanan has already got free. He slaps Freyja and knocks her out. He also knocks out the guard and flees by taking his axe after it got dark. Something comes and starts to attack the soldiers. A soldier blows the horn and alerts all of them. Then we see some tentacles-like things are attacking the soldiers and killing one by one. Kin sees some red light and he moves to that direction searching for it. The monster attacks one of the soldiers and takes his body. Kanan sees this and calls the monster by a name Morlene. He tries to follow it but the soldiers caught him and pins him down. They chains him to the wall. Next day a kid named Eric gets to Kanan and he gives some bread to Kanan. But the soldiers kick it off. Back at the main hall, everyone is thinking who it might be and a priest says it might be Lucifer. Hrothgar says that he worships Odin and he doesn't believe in that Lucifer thing. Boromir also gives some suggestions but they are not getting to any conclusion. Then Kanan was brought to them and he starts to tell that it was a dragon and they call it Morwene. He tells it emits life to hunt its prey and says that he is the one that brought it here. He says it got into his ship and killed his men and then crashed his ship. Kanan then asks them to take him to hunt it so he can help. The king agrees to Kanan's proposal. They tie Kanan's hands and give him a horse. Then Freyja comes from behind and hits him. Later, they go through the forest searching for the Morlene. On their way, they see some trails left by a bear and they decide to split up. Kanan tells they should stay together but the king orders them to pair up. Boromir goes with Hrothgar and Wulfric goes with Kanan. Two other soldiers get to a cave and they get attacked by something. The remaining ones hear this and go to the cave. After getting into the cave, the king got attacked by the bear. Kanan and the others manage to kill the bear and drag its body out. The king freak gives him his freedom back for saving him. Later that night, a party is being held in the main hall and everyone is praising Wulfric for killing the bear. Then Kanan gets in and everyone greets him while having feast. Hrothgar catches Eric sneaking in. Eric doesn't talk much. Hrothgar then says he wants to see the blade that killed the bear. Kanan asks his name and trades the blade for his name. Eric tells his name and goes running by taking the sword. Then a man stands up and shouts shields, and everyone starts to say the same thing. All the men stand around the tables holding the shield to their shoulders. Wulfric stands up and calls Kanan for a competition and he gets onto the shield. Kanan gets onto the shield and they start running around. Freyja gets impressed by Kanan and Hrothgar asks her to bet on him, to which Freyja says no one beats Wulfric at shields. Wulfric performs some stunts and challenges Kanan to do the same. Kanan also does the same but in the end, his shield breaks and he falls down. After the party is done, Kanan is out thinking something. Then Freyja comes to him and thanks him for saving her father and Kanan apologizes for hitting her earlier. While they were talking, some people start to attack the soldier. It is Gunnar and his men. They managed to break into the village. Hrothgar and his men rush out and a battle breaks out. Between them, Hrothgar fights with Gunnar but gets beaten up by him. When Gunnar is about to kill Hrothgar, Kanan strikes him and saves Hrothgar. Gunnar is taken away by his men saying that he is lost. Then Gunnar gets into the forest and plotting something to attack Hrothgar in his village. While they are making a plan, they hear some screams. They are being attacked by the Morween. Gunnar and his men fight with it but it is no use so they ran away from it. Wulfric thinks it is Gunnar's plan and tries to shoot him with arrows. Kanan stops them and opens the gate letting Gunnar and his men come in. Then they all see the Morween killing Gunnar's men and they realize they are facing something dangerous than a bear. Next morning, they all talk and Gunnar tells them what they saw and says they can't even cut it with swords, it's too strong. Wulfric tells they should hunt it down. Kanan says hunting it doesn't work and says they should trap it. When Wulfric rejects his judgment, they both get into a fight. Then the king says even if Kanan is an outlander, they should follow his idea cause he knows about it. And Hrothgar asks Kanan how to defeat it. Kanan and the others start to make a game trap to kill it. They dig against hole deep enough to fit the Morween and Kanan tells them to install 2 rows of post holes on both sides and then he puts shield on top of them to able to walk and they pour all the whale oil they had into the pit and they cage the pit down and finally they prepare a trap to kill the Morween. Later that night, Freya brings some dinner to Kanan. While they are eating, Freya says that she saw him talking to her father earlier and asks what did he say. Kanan tells he asked him to stay. Freya asks him if he is going to. Kanan then tells his story in a Viking version. Kanan's races are colonizers. When they find a planet with life on it, they will wipe out its entire population to occupy the planet. One such planet belongs to the Morwins. They killed the entire Morwins race by nuking their planet and hunting down the remaining ones. After every last Morwin is wiped out, they set to live on the planet by building colonies. And one day, Kanan went on to a mission but by the time when he gets back, their homes were destroyed by Morin that survived the hunt. He says that he feels bad for hunting the Mormons and even worse for not being able to save his family. Freya tries to console him by saying he is just following his king's orders and it is not his fault, saying it is just fate. Then Freya gives Kanan a sword and she tells that it is the king's sword which is passed down by the ancestors and her father gave it to her to pass it down to a man who was worthy enough to wield it. Later, they all prepare to kill the Morween. The king blesses Wulfric and Kanan before going. The women and children went into the main hall and are hiding there. One of the men hears something from the well. By the time Boromir looks at him, he sees nothing. Wulfric and Kanan walk out of the walls with a torch. They both stop near the bridge and Kind throws the torch over the bridge and the Morween is in front of them. It puts down the fire and starts to walk towards them. Then the priest comes to it and tries to perform a seance on it but he gets killed by the Morin Wulfric. Kanan starts to run into the village. They lure it into the cage and Kanan gets out of it and pulls out Wulfric who falls in the oil. After they both are out, the soldiers light up the pit causing a big kaboom. They think it is dead but back at the main hall Eric sees another small Morin and everyone starting running out. The king sees this and goes to the hall. Meanwhile, the Morween they trapped emerges out of the flames and starts to hunt down and kill every man it can. It runs out of the village by breaking the wall and killing Gunnar. Back at the hall, the king tries to fight with the other Morween but gets killed by it in an instant. Eric gets to Kanan and informs him there is another one. When he gets there, the king is already dead. Next morning everyone is leaving the village but Eric tells Kanan he doesn't want to go, to which Kanan promises that everyone will come back soon when they kill the Morween. Later he talks to Wulfric and gives him the king's amulet and tells him let's kill that thing together. Then he takes them to the well and shows them the water filled with blood and says they have to go into the well to reach it. Kind and goes to get a harder metal to kill the Morween. He goes to the lake with Wulfric and Freya, and he dives into the river. He takes a metal piece out of the ship and sends it to the surface. By the time he gets to top, the boat is destroyed, and Freya is gone. They get back to the village with metal. Warmir makes a neat looking king's sword with the metal they got later. Kanan gets to the bottom of the well and it leads into a cave. Everyone else gets there too. Freya wakes up in a place full of corpses. When the Morrowind is about to kill Freya, it senses the others and goes to them leaving her. It starts to kill the men one by one and they got divided. Wulfric and Kanan get to it when it is killing one of the mankind and gets to it and cuts off its eyes. Warmir tries to stop it but killed by it. Kanan shouts out loud on seeing his friend's death. Freya hears Kanan's voice and calls for him. Wulfric and Kanan get to Freya. Meanwhile, the blind Morin approaches her and Kind and gives the sword for through a gap and Freya slices off the head of the Morween. They get to Freya and they see the bigger Morwin approaching them and runs out but they reach the dead end. Wulfric fights with it when Kanan is helping Freya to escape. He fights his best with it but Wulfric gets killed by it. Kinnan gets angry seeing this and he goes into the cave. He fights with it and tries to kill it and manages to cut a tentacle of it. The beast escapes, and just when it is about to attack Kanan from behind, Freya comes there and stabs the Morwing, giving Kanan a chance to attack it. However, the beast manages to drag Kind into the cliff. Freya is trying to pull Kanan up, but the beast is hanging by holding his hand. Kin takes his sword and cuts off the Morwen's hand, making it falls off the top to death before dying. Wulfric gives the king's amulet to Kanan. Later, they get to the top of the mountain and sees there people in the boats. They call for the people who are leaving before leaving. Kanan says he has something else to do and he kisses her before going. He gets back to the lake and standing in front of the computer and sees a ship approaching him, but he takes out his sword and destroys the computer. Freya watches this from behind the bushes. He gets back to Freya and he became the king of the Vikings. Freya became his wife and he adopted Eric as his son. The movie ends with Hrothgar and Wulfric's burial ceremony. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel, and also click the bell icon to receive new video notifications.